The holidays start here at Kroger with a variety of options to celebrate traditions old and new. You could do a classic herb-roasted turkey or spice it up and make turkey tacos. Serve up a go-to shrimp cocktail or use Simple Truth wild-caught shrimp for your first Cajun risotto. Make creamy mac and cheese or a spinach artichoke fondue from our selection of Murray's cheese. No matter how you shop, Kroger has all the freshest ingredients to embrace all your holiday traditions. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. And for my final time in 2023, welcome to the fourth episode of The Big Decisions. And ladies and gents, we are still top of the league as we stand right now on Sunday morning. I know Arsenal play later, so that could change, but there's a lot of things positive. But there's still a lot of things for Jurgen Klopp to consider, isn't there, with January literally looming in any hour, so to speak. There's a window, there's injury concerns, there's a small matter of Newcastle, and then we have to talk about whether he believes the kids are all right and we have enough to get us through. So, in no particular order, but carefully planned, it makes sense to start at Newcastle, doesn't it? 1st of Jan, 8 o'clock, the Monday night, which is a good reference for people who have kind of lost track completely of where you should be. So it's the first semblance of trying to get it back. And in good news, they're having the day off for the darts type of thing, aren't they? So you shouldn't miss the final either. But key things to be aware of for me, the big decision for the Newcastle game. You play your strongest possible lineup. It's that straightforward. So some people will quite easily come straight back in. Ibu Konate did not play at Burnley. And whilst Jarell Quansah was absolutely superb, there's no two ways about it in that game, it's a bit of a different beast against a smaller, not all aggressive, shall we say, Burnley side. However, all Newcastle's threats are attacking. Isaac, Wilson, Air Fryer, Claire Balding, all their goals sort of come from attacking areas and going forward. They're a physical team, aren't they, with Joe Linton as well. And I know people will be saying, oh, well, Quansah did all right in the St James's Park game. Yeah, for a small cameo, but it makes no sense not to play Konate in this one. So I think he comes back in. Some things are forced, aren't they? Either way, Joe Gomez has got to be the left back. Trent will be at right back as well. In the middle, you have to play Endo before he heads off to the Pacific Cup. I know it's been great, and that's part of the injury news, which we'll come to. Alexis McAllister is back in training. We've seen him in those photos the last few days, so that's absolutely brilliant. However, you don't risk anything. And also, it'd be nice if Endo got a small tweak, shall we say, that keeps him out for the Pacific Cup, maybe for a week or so. That would time quite nicely, especially because, after this one, it's Arsenal in the Cup. But anyway, maybe that's just my cynical side. Also, midfield as well. Grav and Elliott did okay, but it's Jones and Szoboszlai for this one. The best physical matchup we can muster. Forward line, Salah will play before he heads off to AFCON. It's difficult, this. Núñez has to be one of them. It's whether you believe he goes middle or he goes left. Jota, if he was fully fit, he would start easily this for me. But just because he had a few minutes, didn't he, against Burnley, it would make sense, in my personal opinion, to keep Cody Gakpo on the left. Didn't do too much wrong, to be fair. Got an assist, did he, as well? Cody Gakpo, a bit of running under the left-sided position in his, some would argue, is natural. I know since he's come to the club, we tried to almost reinvent him in a type of Firmino, it's not really It's not really happened, has it? There's been bits, there's been moments, but it's not taken off, so to speak. So to give him a run on the left side wouldn't be the worst thing, especially because after this one, there's cups and things coming up. So for me, the starting forward lineup will be Gakpo, or would be Gakpo on the left, Nunes on the middle or in the middle, and Salah on the right. That would be my personal preference. Wouldn't surprise me at all if Diaz starts, but there's two to come off the bench and rotate. But the big thing about Newcastle is because you are losing Endo and Salah, they should start, and you've got players like Jota and McAllister to come back in. So that's the big thing. The other big decisions, I mean, we've got injury news aplenty, didn't we, in that last press conference? And it was mixed, to say the least. McAllister back, that was the big positive. Thiago set to be back in training. They're being careful with him in January, but it gives us that hope, doesn't it, that we might just get 10 and 15 games out of him, something like that. It might be a forlorn hope and people will be screaming, going, what are you talking about? But it does give you that hope. Maybe not expectation, but the hope is there with Thiago now. On the bad news, Stefan Bajcetic, that Jurgen said, I mean, he could train now, but if he did, he'd then be out for 4 to 5 weeks potentially. It's still a growing pains. You have to watch it. It's medical advice. There's no way around it. So it's kind of a bit of a worry there, to be honest, now, isn't it? That it's starting to get to the point where you just can't put a timeline. And also, because the kid was injured back in April after he'd done so well in a small cameo in a dismal season last year. That's a long time. And there's no imminent return date. Growing pains, yes. People forget, Stevie G had them as well, didn't he? Stevie G had a period like this, and they did last quite a while. Stevie G, people had sort of blanked this from their mind, but when he was younger, we did have a period of about 18 months in truth. When you saw the interviews from Dave Galley, who was the physio at the time, and how he put it, it was an 18-month period in that regard. So let's hope it isn't that long, but that puts a question mark there. And Robbo, that was the bad news, really, wasn't it? Because I think we were all sort of alluding to, we'd seen Robbo in photos that, you know, early Jan, mid-Jan, he could be there. Jurgen used those specific words, didn't he? Is a long way, a way off being ready. So all the indications are in full training, probably leading you to think that it may well even be February, you'd suspect, until we see Andy Roberts. Something before would be a bonus, and Jurgen's not always truthful or, you know, economical with the information, let's put it that way. But the smart money says February for Andy Robbo. So that comes in mind, doesn't it, with that injury news and what Liverpool have, because the transfer window, I don't have the New York ding, 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 ready to go, anything like that, stock exchange, but the transfer window opens tomorrow. And you get your short-term, long-term thinking, you get your positions. I mean, some positions I think are now, I bet the forward line's not going to change. Long-term, we might well like to see changes to it, and you'll have your opinions on that, but that ain't changing in Jan, even with Salah going, forget it. Midfield, there is a case for this, isn't there, with, you know, Thiago bringing a replacement early, he's been talked about. You don't see any short-term with Endo, but you think Bajcetic. But again, we've often talked about, we all want a number 6, like a true, real number 6. We know Caicedo was wanted. We know that. We also know they're interested in players like Kamara, Aston Villa, and that type of thing. But big decision-wise, I just don't, unless, again, there's another serious injury, envisage any moves for a midfielder. I really don't. And even Cody Gakpo's been used there. He's shown he's willing to do that. So I just don't see it. It's defence where all the question marks are. And it's understandable to have this, because just an extra body makes a huge difference, wouldn't it? Especially with the limited numbers we've got now. But you've just got to be factual. We'll all have different opinions, and they're performing well. That's the key thing to say. So many of the defences performing well. It's pretty much, if you look across the board, you can't label anyone, so you're not up to scratch realistically when they've been there. Even the ones who got injured recently, like Matip, Costas have come, back into form. Gomez has been superb. They've all performed well. So it's a big kudos for the defence there. The problem is, it's on the bones of its arse, the defence. You have to be honest on that. Matip is out for the season. Costas is a broken collarbone. That's long-term is the suggestions. I mean, there's even talking, the Greek reports were announced when they've got their playoff in sort of mid-March. He's doubtful for that. So you're missing him for, like, if not all, a great majority of the rest of the season. Robbo, February. So you have 0 fit natural left backs. Joe Gomez is your only senior option, really. He's your third choice. And he's accomplished. He's done well. I mean, he pocketed Saka, don't get me wrong, but he's the only option. He's also not a natural left back. He's also a centre-back option as well. So if you take him out that mix, you have 3 fit centre-backs. Van Dijk, Kwanzaa, Konate. Anyone who hasn't got question marks about Konate's fitness needs their head testing. People will say, oh, rested rotator, and look at the Burnley game. Let's be honest, if he was fully fit and you didn't have any concerns, you like your defenders and your partnership to get on a run, so you'd have kept it that way. Additionally, just look at his record in the last few seasons. Muscle strain after injury, after strain, etc. That's just factual. So with your 3 remaining centre-backs, because you have to for this month, take Gomez as a left-back, really, don't you? You have to. You've got concerns there. Jurgen Klopp, in his defence, is destroying every challenge and test put in front of him. No doubts. The potential, the ceiling is ginormous. So's the ask. You could be asking this kid to play a lot. We're still unaware. We have to be honest on that. We're still unaware. I think Jurgen Klopp has big faith, and so he should. I mean, quite right. This isn't to criticise the kid, but we're still unaware how his body will respond to if he needs to play games regularly. We're not really seeing that yet. You have to be honest on that too. So there's big question marks there. The other thing to look at, I mean, we play 6 times in total in January, so it's not as action-packed as December. That is one thing to say. But there's big games still. You know, they're all big. There's Newcastle, as we know. There's Bournemouth. There's Chelsea at the end of the month in the league. There's 2 Carabao Cup semi-finals. They're big. You know, it's a chance of a trophy there. Yes, there is a bit of a break, so you factor that in. You factor it in and say 10th till the 21st, and Jurgen will have that on his radar as, you know, the big thing to not go into the market, I suspect, to think, can I survive with what I have? And I've got faith. However, for me, the big decision, I think, is obvious. Now, I've seen links with players like Enori at Wolves, and Robinson, wasn't he the latest one, the left back at Fulham. It doesn't really make too much sense to me. And yes, if one of those came, you think it more like to be Enori. I don't believe it will happen personally. You never know 100%. It's an extra body, it's helpful. And Joe Gomez rotates then to central defence as an option and right back cover. That's the other thing to say as well. Joe Gomez has been Trent's cover. Joe Gomez has been superb at right back, hasn't he, when he's come on? I mean, so sometimes people have advocated, I have at times, like Joe Gomez to right, push Trent up as an option, you know, or just rotate. That option's gone realistically now as well. You have to treat him as a left back for this month. So even if it was one of, like, say, Robinson, Enori, I get it. For me, though, you go and get the defender you're planning to get, as in the Matip replacement. You bring that forward. Now, we've all seen the names, let's not pretend. The 2 names that keep coming up, Nkape at Leverkusen, Inacio at Sporting. The thing is with Nkape, it sounds like there's a couple of factors there. Bayern, Rofflers, you know, they've already said we're not selling anyone because we're flying in January. That's the first thing. The second thing is there's always going to be that question mark because of who his agent is. If you aren't aware, it's the same sort of agency that Caicedo uses. So there's, you know, is trust broken down? How do we see that? That is a question mark. We don't fully know, but it's a serious question mark. So so you can't get him now, the agent, and then the fee. I mean, if Leverkusen do go on to something massive, qualify for the Champions League, there's also the thing that they're losing a few, or they're set to lose a few, that Frimpong will go in 2024. Will they be willing to sanction him? Very possibly for the right fee, but it won't be small change. Because he signed that contract recently as well. It will not be small change, so that's a factor. The second name that keeps coming up.
If you've been hurt by a truck, you can call Colombo Law 24/7 and we'll be there to make sure you're taken care of. When someone is hurt by a truck, Colombo Law is the law firm people call to get answers. Hurt by a truck? Call Colombo Law.
Inacio. And Neil Jones used a good analogy the other day. It feels like they're fattening him up, doesn't he? Like a cow, getting him ready for the move. He's playing regularly. He's just signed that contract, so he's got that release clause built in. Now, you'd suspect, could be wrong, nothing's ever certain, but if Liverpool do want him, if he is the other option, it's hard to know for definite, he's not going to go probably for less than his release clause. Why would Sporting sanction that, especially in January, especially even in the summer, in that regard? So he's going to be the same price in now or Jan as he is in the summer. Why not do it now? That would be the obvious one for me. Inacio can play left back and centre back. Yes, you could argue that when will he get his games? There's plenty of games still to be played. Are you honestly telling me we're not going to get another injury? I mean, come on. We've got Joe Gomez is now our left back. We are relying, be clear on that, we're relying on the fitness of Konate and Gomez. If you haven't got question marks over that, we're hoping. I'm hoping rather than expecting. That has to be honest. And by the way, ladies and gents, we are top of the table, so we need to be thinking prizes. We're in the semi-final of a Carabao, with competitions. We want to go all the way to Dublin and the Europa. That will require a squad. I just think that the Matip replacement coming in now lifts everything. If it was Inacio especially, someone who can play left back and centre back, just look at that and think about the issues or the question marks and how many answers straight away. I really do. There's so many things like this working in it, and it might not be either of these. I don't know. No one's 100% certain, but they're the two names being linked. And someone that could play like a left back and central defence, I just think changes the picture for us. I think it gives us a massive lift, a boost to everyone. I really do. And even when the others start coming back, if it was Inacio, for instance, he doesn't have to play 1,000 games, does he, this season? You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be regular. It's a good 6 months like Gakpo had, like Diaz had, to acclimatise. And by the way, Diaz, especially in that first 6 months, what an impact he made, what a lift. That should be your marker at the same time as well. So big decision for me. Linked to the transfer and injury news. I do think Liverpool should be looking hard. It maybe won't be straight away, I understand that, because after Newcastle, he says Arsenal in the FA Cup. Which leads me to my next decision, or the big decision, because we'll find out if the kids are all right. I would throw kids galore into this. The third round of the FA Cup. We almost couldn't have got a worse draw, maybe City away, but arguably the worst draw you could possibly get. But if you look at the week coming up, it's Newcastle, your strongest team. Then Arsenal in the FA Cup, then the first semi-final at home as well. So for me, the big decision is get your strongest team out, possibly, in the Newcastle game and the Fulham semi at home first leg. That's what you should be looking for. Chuck in the kids. Let's find out if the kids are all right. You should already be thinking, okay, let me look at this lineup. Keller is going to play in nets. Kwanzaa's going to be centre-back. Bradley on the right, Chambers on the left. Let's see, as we say, if the kids are all right. Give them a chance. And actually, I have almost no expectations from it, but give them a chance, okay? And then the other centre-back alongside them, to me, you could play a half with like Konate and a half with Van Dijk in that regard, 45 each possibly. But see, already you're going to have to use a centre-half. And you don't want to use Joe Gomez because he's your only real left-back. Let's be honest on that too. So the side's starting to pick itself. You also, for me in this, you bring Gravenberch back in straight away. You bring Elliott back in. And I'll come to Elliott in a second, actually. You have to be careful with this. Cade Gordon should be starting that Arsenal game. Listen, if Ben Doak wasn't having his surgery, he would be starting this Arsenal game. And then almost Jurgen needs to think, who am I going to be my three starting forwards now? You might be thinking a bit of a rotation, because I think Jota will maybe just struggle to get back for Newcastle, but I'm thinking for the first leg semi, He's going to be back there. And obviously Salah will have gone by then. So, there's going to be rotation, whatever. But you need to think, or I believe Jurgen needs to think, what's the strongest forward line I can get out for the Newcastle game? And then based on who's going to leave is available, the Fulham game. And whoever's left, they're going to populate the roles for Arsenal. But it would be, for me, the strongest second string. Trust the kids. Now, people are going to say, so you're just saying throw McConnell in, Scanlon, all those. For me, it might just be too much for that level because you've got to separate the tiers almost with these kids. That Chambers, Bradley have played senior football for Bolton, for Kilmarnock. Yes, but they've had that exposure. Cade Gordon, we've seen something. We've not really given a chance. And whilst the talent's huge from McConnell and Scanlon, I think it's a bit too much of an ask maybe at this stage. But they might get minutes in it. But that would be my decision, or the big decision for this. Find out if the kids are all right in that regard. Give them a shot. Arsenal game, have zero expectations. In the nicest way, yes, we want to win pots, but it's the worst possible draw you could get. Ask yourself honestly, with the Carabao semi pending, where we are in the league, are you that gutted if we were to go out the FA Cup? We all love pots. We all love the Champions Walls numbers to tick up. I do as well. The days out of Wembley are brilliant. But hell, we've got a heck of a chance in that Fulham semi to go there, haven't we? We're favourites for that tournament, we have to be honest. So big decision for me. Give the kids the outing. Find out how all right they are. Anything in the FA Cup's a bonus. It can't go to extra time, can it, as well? So, or the replay, sorry. So, yeah. And am I now thinking, if I'm wrong on that, the last thing we want is a replay. So someone will obviously jump in at some point, but for the kids, that way. Which is the final big decision. How do you acclimatise for the loss of arguably the biggest, if not one of, however you want to describe it, people will be Van Dijk's most important, Salah. But Salah's a very, very important player, if not the most important player for Liverpool. How do you replace that? I am starting to think, based on, it's not necessarily he's the best forward in the ways he will contribute of goals, assists, his overall metrics. However, Harvey Elliott being pushed up makes the most sense for me. We've seen it in a couple of outings recently. Harvey Elliott's in good form. And also, you'd think if Elliott, as he cuts inside, that just gives the option more for Szoboszlai, Trent to go on the outside, that type of thing, and make things happen. It does give a very creative right-hand side, doesn't it, still? And I know people are going to, we've already got that with Salah, Trent. I get that, but it keeps a high level of creativity, doesn't it? Yeah? So that would be the other big decision for me. Harvey Elliott, whilst Mo Salah's away. Endo, it takes care of itself a little bit as well. I mean, if you're honest, if McAllister didn't have this knee, which was supposed to be 2 minutes and then wasn't, and then came back, would we even have seen Endo in this run? Would he even have got that big run against United, Arsenal, West Ham in a week, as this meat and the sandwich, that type of thing? So all those types of things come into our thinking in that regard. So, yeah, McAllister is the easy slot in. There are big decisions, though, people. There are a lot of things for Jurgen Klopp to get right. I do think it would be almost tantamount, me and Trev said it on the transfer show, to a bit of negligence that way. I mean, the other thing that came out this morning that you're thinking, why didn't I talk more about sort of Robinson or Aïnouri? I kind of dismissed those. Neil Jones also came out this morning and said Liverpool are not planning to sign a senior left-back. So that's a very well-renowned, very well-respected journalist who's quite rightly in the Liverpool space. So what can you post into that? But yeah, those are the big decisions for Newcastle, the transfer window, injury news, finding out if the kids are all right. It's a big month coming up. As it stands, as we said, the Reds are still top of the league. There is so much to play for. There's so much exciting, but we just can't leave ourselves short, for me. So that, ladies and gents, only leaves me to say, if you've listened to the end, thank you as ever. Enjoy your new year. Enjoy the end of 2023, especially, let's hope we all enjoy as Reds, 2024. because that was the big decisions for Anfield Index.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
Sports Social Podcast Network.